Welcome back to part 2 of the Pair Genius podcast, Discovering Your Inner Power. I haven't quite named the episode yet.
That's fine.
Discovering Your Inner Power, part 2. Like, subscribe, share it with all your friends, make us go viral, because if this could be my full-time job, just sitting here and being hilarious and thoughtful, and man, you almost made me cry in the last
I'm sorry.
episode, but it's okay.
It's a thing that I'm doing today. You're not the only one.
Emotions are fine. I'm manly enough to be emotional. And you know what I love?
No.
I love saying milady.
I know.
You are my lady. And I was just thinking about how nice of a t-shirt it would be with a M apostrophe.
Milady.
Milady. And it would be, you would wear the shirt. And
obviously.
you would be milady. I like that.
I'm happy to be your milady.
Anyway, let's get into it. You know what's funny? Is you changed and I didn't.
Because I walk the dog and I had to change because I can't walk in nice gear.
See, we are staggering these episodes, part 1 and part 2. But you're like a real Vanna White where you get changed and you make it all different.
I wouldn't have changed, but like I said.
There you go. I'm still rocking the black and it's okay. I look classic. I look classic right now.
You do.
Okay, where did we leave off? Let's do a quick recap and then let's hit the ground running. I think we did a lot of my personal power.
Yeah, we spent most of the recording focusing on you figuring out what?
I was going to say we talked a lot about your symphony experiences.
A lot. I think that I may have burped in something at some point.
I don't know. When you listen back to the tape, you were trying to really monopolize the entire episode with your symphony experiences, and that's okay. Sometimes we're going to fight for attention.
I can see
on
you're
here.
having a hard time finishing this.
like to poke the bear. Oh,
Dude,
man.
you don't know where my stomach is on the camera. You almost like grabbed my boob on camera.
Ooh, that's naughty. Yeah. I'm naughty.
And we've just lost everybody.
We've lost all credibility. We're not emotional. We are strictly comedy again. We're back to comedy. My lady. All right. Hit us with it. So that was a pretty good recap, right?
No, I didn't get to recap at all.
Okay. Keep going with your recap. I'll be quiet.
We spent most of our energy on you, which is great. Totally fine. And I think that we touched on different ways that you can reconnect to your inner power, because throughout your life, there are clues left behind. And I think that mostly what I wanted to say is that your personal power is going to be really simple. Like it'll just not in its power in going back to try and find it.
I'm actually being rewound to our first episode and thinking about how many times you put your head down and said that I missed the point.
On the last recording?
On the last recording.
Because you were deflecting. Anytime that I touch on something that is just a little bit too vulnerable, a little bit too raw, you deflect with something else.
That's my defense mechanism.
I understand that, but I have to call you on it.
But it's upsetting to me.
I'm sorry, but this is the only way that you grow.
Oh my goodness.
So
Okay.
what we found out about you and your personal power is that it feels like it's in the archetype of the superhero, and I'm just creating this archetype for you.
Yes, I want to be the superhero.
Because you love to swoop in and save the day, and not so that you can get a trophy for it afterwards, but because you're actually extremely valuable in a crisis situation, in an emergency situation. You're very grounded. You hold safe space for people that are involved in the crisis, and then you allow them to open up and share things with you, and you can come in as a guide because of your life experience. So your personal power is not just something that you were born with. It's something that your life experiences have added to and have expanded.
You know what I love? I love being the best part of someone's day. And when I'm feeling crappy about myself, I go inwards and I don't interact with the outside world, and I punish either myself or all the others that I could have impacted in positive ways by not going out into the world.
I'm writing something down.
Oh, okay. Did you hear what I said though?
Of course I heard what you said.
I
I'm a
can't
woman
do,
and I can multitask.
I can't do two things. So if I'm writing something, I have no idea what you have just said.
I'm making you a t-shirt that says I love being the best part of someone's day. I think that's really important. I think that's a really good mantra for you because it allows you to show up in your best possible version, and you being who you are is enough to make an impact already on somebody's life.
But I do love it. And then we talked about sacrifice in one of the last episodes, and I always sacrifice the things that I love the most in order to do things I don't want to do, or you know what I mean? I always do the homework before I get to have the dessert.
If you were aligned more with your personal power, you would stop sacrificing. There's no need to sacrifice. You don't ever have to sacrifice. Sacrificing is something you do from a place of desperation or fear or lack, or, like you don't actually ever have to sacrifice, especially yourself.
I wonder why I wonder when that comes in where we program ourselves to punish ourselves instead of our parents punishing us. We punish ourselves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, something to unpack. I'm going to meditate on that one.
So we talked about challenging moments in your past, and to revisit those moments and see how you showed up. How did you respond in that moment of challenge? Because how you responded usually gives you a sneak peek into your personal power.
Right.
And then we talked about how your inner child also holds the blueprint to your personal power. And that's where we left off.
Okay. And last episode was my favorite so far.
I think that it was a good learning moment for you in the last one.
Yeah, but I felt bad that we did have to chop it because we had another meeting coming up and we never recorded that long.
Oh.
So it only makes sense to, we do about 45 minutes. So it's good to chop it into two. And now we're going to appropriately focus on you a little bit more.
Yeah, so this year, 2024, has been the year of the gut for me. And everyone has heard me talking about this.
Your poor guts.
And just being completely blocked. And me, because I'm performance-based, meaning I show up to perform in every situation and perform to my best. I expected the same of my body. So I was frustrated and angry that my body wasn't figuring out fast enough, and things happen for a reason. I'm a highly intuitive person. I just am. There's water all over my chart. I'm a Scorpio. I mean, intuition is just a thing. I've trusted my intuition very well. But because I'm running the program of performance, I feel like somehow it has gotten in the way of me being able to listen to my body in the right way.
Okay.
And through a series of events in the past few weeks, this woman has come across my experience, and she contacted me last week. And I thought, okay, well, this is not a coincidence, because just that day I was already on her website trying to get a feel from the page, some energy and stuff. And then when she contacted me, I thought, okay, I'm going to book. I'm going to do this. And in the vein of vibrational medicine and some intuitive stuff. So I've tried everything else at this point. There's a reason that she has popped up. I'm going. I didn't know what I was in for, so I went on Saturday, and basically what she did, and I plan on sending her a message today to let her know what she's done for me, because I don't even know if she knows. She was able to communicate on my body's behalf. So there was a moment after, and because I am who I am, I needed her to, without knowing, validate that she was actually in the flow, that her filter was clean with the information that was coming through to me. And once I was beyond that, and I'm like, yes, I'm in, she was telling me that, among other things, that my right adrenal was so exhausted. And the way she spoke, it could have been the voice of my adrenal. It came with all that energy, all that emotion, and I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken that I had pushed my body that hard that this poor little adrenal gland was suffering the way it was. Now, she helped me with downloads, and we've kind of started integrating some new things so that my body can move. And let me tell you, since seeing her, I have become 100% unblocked. I have become quite regular. So whatever we were working on my body definitely helped. But I think a little bit of what else happened is that my heart got cracked open just a little bit more. My heart space,
Yeah.
So where was I going with all of this?
Was that hard on you? Did you feel it right away, or was it more today when you were starting to feel that?
I walked out and I was emotionless because it was like I just needed to sit with it. And so here's the thing, part of my beliefs are that when I invite a healer into my experience, I need to show up equally. So it's a co-healing thing,
Right.
right? It's never all on the other person to heal me. It's on me too. I have to show up. When I do acupuncture, I work with the medicine. I work with the therapist. It's not just them just poking holes in me.
Right. We're talking about our powers, right?
Right. So it did take time for me to bring it home and sit with it and meditate. And I've been meditating a lot the past few days. So this morning was kind of a big one for me because I knew we were going to be talking about personal power. I feel like like I was still circling, like I'm just kind of going around and around, kind of, and my personal power is in the middle, and I'm just kind of orbiting around it. And I really just wanted to hone in. So I think I did.
Okay.
It's hard for me to know how to lay this out because I don't want to give it all away. I think that the process is important, especially for people who learn through steps.
Right. I'm a stepper.
So step one, ask the question.
Right.
I had to really ask intently, what is my personal power?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And in that, I'm shining light on it and opening up to the universe to bring in these experiences that help me crack it open even more, which is exactly what happened. Very emotional today.
Was it hard to, I don't know, was it hard to receive that?
No,
No? Were you surprised?
by
Were you surprised by what you learned? Is that why you're emotional? Or were you
no.
just so happy for the
Well,
confirmation? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I love confirmation. I love it because, and I look for it all the time because it just kind of reinforces my intuition and it just boosts me a little bit. I am not perfect, as most of us are not. So the confirmation and that little boost is necessary for me. Like,
Right.
sometimes it just shakes me awake. It's like, oh yeah, no, I know what I'm doing. So I appreciate those moments.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that came to me right away, yes, last night when I was meditating on my personal power was, how do I connect with other people on a deep level? Not just me, but I think anybody. I was going to ask you the same thing.
Okay.
When you connect with somebody on a very deep level, how are you doing it? Because everybody does it differently,
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, wow, I'm actually kind of terrible at connecting with people, I think. Like, that's my first reaction. No, I'm just terrible at connecting. And that's because I have a very, very well protected heart. I have built a wall so high that it's taking me a long time to even just take it apart brick by brick.
It's so much easier to have a surface type relationship with someone. It's tiring. It's exhausting to always have big talk. That's what I've noticed too. Not that it's bad. It's actually a good thing to talk about big important things, but they can get tiring.
But I think that I would argue if you're feeling drained from doing it, then maybe that's not how you should be connecting with people on that deep level.
Okay.
Maybe for you, connecting to someone on a deep level is saving them. Maybe it requires that, like that level of commitment and bravery and experience and wisdom.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm just saying, right? Like, in what way do you not feel depleted when you're trying to connect deeply to another person?
Yeah, I think one of my big problems is um, that I think that everybody just waits on coat hangers for me and they just exist when I need them. And then I'm surprised when I don't nurture a relationship enough, when it kind of fizzles out and they're not, as receptive as when they do hear from me. And it's like, oh, I need to be a better nurturer of relationships. I think, and I used to always think that it was their fault because I mean the phone goes both ways. And I just realized that most people don't go the extra mile for a lot of things, or I don't surround myself with people that go the extra mile. So then it's up to me. I need to go the extra mile. I need to be the one that nurtures things for my sake and for their sake. And I have to be okay with that. It is the way it is.
So, getting back to me,
Sorry.
I I my initial reaction is I just don't connect. And that's not their fault. That's my fault because I've closed off the connection point.
Mm.
So then I started thinking, when did I do that? And I haven't talked too much about my family and my childhood, but it was for me so all of this information about my family is coming through my experience and my perception. I'm not saying my parents are terrible. I'm saying that I had terrible moments in that environment. So part of my gift, something that I know that I've always had and still have, is that I'm an empath. So I can walk into a room and read the energy without talking to anybody. If someone does talk, they're talking at a surface level, but I'm already going deeper with that person. They don't know it.
Mm.
So then I'm able to feel it. So I'm reading the energy. I can feel the energy. I've learned how to protect myself and distinguish when it's mine and theirs. So this is a unique gift. So as a child, I was very good at reading the room. I was very good at reading energy. And I used to have the second half of that. So being an empath is just one half of the equation. What I didn't realize was the second half of the equation. Now, when you're an empath as a child and you're emotional and you are born into a family that shuts down your emotion because there isn't enough room for it, your instinct is to turn it off because you are not adding to the environment in a positive way at that point. There was no room for my emotion because there was too much trauma already going on. And because I was experiencing their trauma and what it felt like, all I could do was shut down at that point. So that's when I started to build the wall. Because I feel that your heart space really is the whole control system for your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Love is an emotion. Anger is an emotion. Fear is an emotion. The thing with me is that I tend to bring the intensity of the emotion at the same level no matter what that emotion is. I am angry with intensity. I love with intensity. I fear with intensity. Like I bring the intensity.
Oh, yeah. I can feel it. I get it in my gut right away. I can tell what's in the room because you are powerful.
And you have always said that I'm powerful.
Right.
Right? You have always told me that, but it didn't really make sense to me. And then whenever I have an experience with an energy worker, a light worker, an angel worker, the message has always been the same, that my heart is very tender and gentle. And I would look and I'm like, you're reading the wrong person because I am powerful. I am strong. I am stone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I never could understand. Today I understand because it's open and it hurts. So this morning, while I was getting ready, I just was like pulled back into my childhood, just pulled back. And I had this intense moment with my inner child. And I'm like, what is it? What is it? What's the blueprint? And then she told me what it was. I wrote it down because I'm going to have a hard time with this next part, I think.
Do you want your glasses?
I probably don't because...
Oh, you wrote it big?
This way.
Okay, my personal power amplifier.
So I am an amplifier.
Okay.
And as soon as I figured that out, and I just bawled because all of a sudden it made sense. From that moment, my inner child whispering that to me, I went from memory to memory to memory. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, what happens when you amplify somebody else's anger?
It goes through the roof. It boils over, right?
It makes it so much worse.
Right.
My home was filled with anger, with trauma, instability, and all my presence did was amplify all those things. When you amplify things like that, people tell you there's something wrong with you, there's something about you they don't like, that you have to change. And then that became my dialogue. Something's wrong with me. I don't understand why my family can't like me. Something's wrong with me. So I buried it, I hid it, and I hid it well because it's taken me 40 years to find it again, I'm an amplifier. And it's funny because it's not the first time I've heard it. I was at a sound bath last month, and Sandy had said, there's a Scorpio in the room, which means right away everything's amplified. And I remember her saying that, but it didn't mean anything. But hearing it from my inner child and then overlaying it on top of all of the times that I felt terrible in my home growing up, I'm like, oh, it's because I was amplifying. But because I was feeling their trauma, I was feeling their fear, I was amplifying from that place.
Okay.
So I was leading from a broken heart. When you're tapped into your personal power and you're leading from a broken heart, your personal power is not going to serve me or anybody else. I'm not of service anymore. I'm out of service.
That's interesting. So when do you think it's valuable to amplify these kinds of things?
So I'm thinking that now that my heart has been cracked open, if I amplify from a place of love, it can't ever be of disservice to anybody. It just can't. If somebody in front of me, I'm reading their energy. Here's why it's a two-step equation for me, because I'm reading your energy. Now I'm feeling your energy. Tell me more about what's happening. And then the more I get into it, the more I start to understand what's happening, I can actually amplify the part of them that they need to heal themselves. I'm not giving you a gift that you don't already possess. I'm not doing any kind of magic except helping you realize the part of you that you need to awaken to move beyond where you are.
That's important.
I didn't have that other step.
I would say most people aren't even aware of that.
Of what?
Of that. That we all probably lock up these things. How many people talk about what we're talking about right now? None.
And that's not true. I'm sure people are talking about it.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we've stumbled upon something very important.
If you think about our house, like the four of us here right now, how often do I amplify a situation? Right? When you're vibing low and I come in not from a place of love, I'm amplifying the situation, and all of a sudden now we've got this monstrous storm happening inside of our house. If
Right.
I'm not careful, then my personal power has the ability to take the long way around instead of taking the smooth road.
Okay.
When I'm going crazy with, you know how I get the little burst of energy and then I just start like
Right.
it's uncontrolled something, it's amplified, and then watch what happens to everybody else in the house, right? I'm just like amplifying insanity, you know?
Usually when you do that though, it's so unexpected and so uncharacteristic of you that none of us know what to do with it. And it's like, oh, this is your joy, but the kids don't know what to do because it's so few and far between.
And it comes with intensity.
Right.
It's not polite, my presence, here I am. It's kaboom, and there's this intense something, and the whole house is upside down. You know?
Yeah. So how do we use this for good?
Well, it's not we, it's me.
Well, if you're co-amplifying things with people, you're the amplifier. So you need a signal to amplify. You aren't the signal.
I'm not the signal. So I was calling myself the brand alchemist for how long now?
Yeah, because you are.
So I come in, and really, now that I know that I'm the amplifier, it makes so much more sense that I'm just taking something that you're not seeing. So here's the empath part. You're saying something, but here's what you're actually saying. And here's, the actual point of being stuck in your brand. And then I use the creativity to bring it through. However, if I can find more of the creativity in them and amplify that, how much more successful is the brand after that?
Right. Well, I mean, it's synonymous, right? Or we have the synonym of elevating your brand, brand alchemy. Elevating and amplifying is similar,
Yeah,
right?
it's similar.
Just didn't, yeah, you are the personal power elevator,
Yeah.
amplifier.
So after our recording, the first one that we did this morning,
Hmm.
I had to take Bear for a walk. So much happens to me when I walk. It's crazy, which is why I don't ever protest. However, we've had this much snowfall,
About a foot, yeah.
like a lot of snow, and so it required my space gear, snow pants and full parka, and I'm very cocooned, and I actually love walking that way because, especially by myself, first of all, I can't hear if there's somebody with me because my ears are like double covered. So I was walking, and knowing now that I'm an amplifier, I was just like, I was walking in like ease. Everything was so easy in my body. And everything made so much more sense. And I was thinking about all these things. And you and I talked about my music degree this morning. And I remember in high school, now this, I don't know why this one moment, but when I came to this moment on my walk with Bear, I dropped to my knees. And thank God I was in private in the forest. And the poor dog just came up to me and sat with his ears down
Oh,
and just sat and looked at me. And I wasn't wailing, but it brought me to my knees. And it was one of those situations where we're going, because you can't, it's like, it's just too much. It's overwhelm. But I remember the time, so I played in the youth orchestra, I was in the symphony, but this was for school, and I was in the high school band. And for some reason, my band director never put me in the spotlight, not ever. There could have been moments where he could have said, you have a gift, so we're going to do something to showcase that. But it was never that. He never let me be anything other than what everybody else was. Last year, grade 12, I'm like, I want to do the Sousa piece. Like, it's really famous. It has a piccolo part in it. I was learning piccolo. Like, let me do this. Now, I was telling you that I wasn't very good at technique. Technique wasn't my forte. It was more all about the sound. However, this piece requires an insane amount of technique. I saw that he was concerned. I took the piece to my private flute teacher and we worked it. I'm telling you, even the week before, it was not where it should have been. And I could tell he was very scared. He was questioning all his decisions up to this point. So we get to and normally you do a band performance in our school in the gym. Mm-hmm. But this was at the Mennonite College, and it was on this beautiful stage in this big auditorium. And that day I decided I wasn't going to wear my cummerbund like everybody else. I was just going to wear black and white. I was going to be different because this was my moment. This was my chance to kind of say, you know what? I'm not just like everybody else. I have this gift and I want to share it. I haven't been allowed to share it so far. I was really going all in. Like, there was going to be no way to hide amongst the many at this point. I asked for this. As a wallflower, it was against everything. But I did it. I didn't dress the way everyone else did. We sat down. The piece starts. Halfway, couldn't get through this. Halfway through the piece, it's this crazy big piccolo solo. So dumb that this thing comes out in a piccolo, but so not only did I sit, I didn't just sit there and play, I stood up, which is something I would never do. I stood up and I let it rip. I don't even know how it came through me. My fingers, I stopped thinking at that moment, and it was like spirit just came flooding through me. I was not well liked in high school. There was a lot of people who disliked me. But when I was done, there was this like crazy ass cheer that went out, and these people that would normally hate me were just like standing on their feet, and like this moment of everybody seeing you at once for what you're able to do is overwhelming. It's never about the person. It's about how spirit comes through. It's what you do with that creative flow. So I'm on my knees in the forest with Bear. And then I'm thinking his role in my life is a reflector in all of our lives. He reflects our energy. When we're yelling and screaming, he goes running because he can't handle it. He's mirroring the intensity of it back at us. And the same when I get goofy and I'm just bursting out of my skin, he can't handle it. He goes crazy. Like, he'll come and he'll try to get involved to protect because he's uncertain of the situation, but then he runs away. When you're on your knees and you're vulnerable and your heart is wide open, your animal, your energy reflector sits with his ears back and just looks and stares at you like that it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to feel that energy didn't scare him. And in that moment, I'm like, there is something there. There is something so precious to being vulnerable. And I think that when you're that way with other people, that's when your heart is cracked open the most. And if I can show up in my personal power that vulnerable, I'll be able to amplify back what needs to be amplified. Crazy that all that came through a piccolo story. Like, who plays the piccolo?
And I think the tragedy is that, well, that was 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago. And these moments are so few and far between in our lives.
Yeah, when have I ever begged somebody to let me express myself in a way like that? Never, never. Even now, anybody who knows me knows that it goes against everything that I am. I've never fought to be able to bring something through so hard. But it was like after all those years of not being seen as a child for what I was, that I was just like, this is the moment it's coming through me. And it flowed with the intensity of somebody who finally let some of that power through.
Yeah. And now going forward, how are you going to incorporate this discovery?
I feel already so much softer. I feel so much safer in the vulnerability now than I ever have. When I think back now at my parents, I can't even, I was so angry, and I'm sure that was so part of the block that I've experienced all year, was how angry I was that they didn't like me, that they couldn't see me. And I feel for the first time I can just let that go.
It's interesting how, I mean, even as us being parents now, how we try and do the best for our kids, but that we don't even realize when we're putting them in boxes when we didn't want to be put in boxes.
I was such a gentle, shy, observing spirit. Like, I was so gentle, which is never ever how I would describe myself. But when I can take myself back, how fragile I was. My parents were Scorpio and Taurus. So my dad, it was his energy that I was reading a lot too, was he's a scary Scorpio. He's a scary Scorpio who chooses not to do the inward work to make him not scary anymore. When he comes out to sting, it is not just a little sting, like how my kids make fun of me, as a Scorpio. When I come out to sting, his sting is like brutally painful, So I was always very aware of that and made sure to make myself as small as possible to not trigger any of that for him. Because amplifying that is deadly to me. My mom was she was like this package of trauma. It was just a package of trauma, and it came out over emotional. Like, it was an emotional tidal wave that would come through the house. And the visual that I kept getting for that was she was the bull in the china shop and I was the china. And she would come tearing through and break me every time. There's only so many times you can do that before you start to hide those things. Hide the fragile thing so that it can't get broken anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, when we met, I would describe you as one of the toughest chicks I ever met.
What I built up was an incredible suit of armor with most of the defense going to my heart space. Because I was protecting the thing that was going to get broken.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I opened up enough that I somehow, I don't even know how. I don't know how you saw beyond the armor. But thank God you did.
I think when you're soulmates, you see the soul. You know, you saw the diamond in the rough. That was me too. There was a lot of people that looked at you and were like, "Why are you with that guy?"
I have to write that down.
Oh, see, I said something and that needs to be written down. But
When you're a soulmate, you see the soul. That's really good.
thanks. I just made that up. But it's true. I mean, you always saw the diamond in the rough. You saw the things in me that I didn't even see. Just like I saw the things in you that you didn't even,
But it
you
was
might have
so much
forgotten.
easier for me to amplify you.
Right.
Except the delivery was wrong because I wasn't amplifying the stuff in you. I was just trying to unload all of my stuff on you, like all my intensity, and like I'm just constantly trying to build you up without amplifying your own innate gifts.
Mm.
Doing it a little bit wrong, but I'm learning.
It's okay. There's still time. You can't get it all right. And you and me are from the Nintendo generation where I've never seen someone as stubborn as you. I've seen you play games that I would have thrown in the garbage, and you keep doing them over and over again, even if they're not fun, until you get it right. That's a good way to describe you, is you see a lot of value in getting through and doing it properly.
I think that's perseverance.
It is, yeah. Yeah, there's lots of times these kids nowadays, they give up after, my kids don't even know how to run and jump in Mario. They know how to walk and jump, and then they fall in a hole twice and they die and then they give up. They're like, this game's stupid. Whereas you and I would spend weeks just trying to get one jump perfectly done.
Yeah.
Perseverance.
I think that it is really important to keep your filter clean, because there are times where we have gone to a medium and I can tell right away when the filter is not clean and the information is coming out in a way that doesn't resonate. Like it's not correct information. That's true for anybody. When I'm in my personal power, if it's coming through a filter that's unclean, then I am going to amplify the wrong things.
It's interesting though, knowing what we know, and I would say that we've done this even from the beginning, is when we go to these types of people, we do a pretty good job of filtering out the stuff that doesn't resonate and being like, okay, that's the thing. That's the thing that resonated. That's the thing I want to focus on.
Yeah.
So that's intuitive, even if you're using an intuitive.
Yeah, that's discernment, which is important.
Sure.
And I don't know, a part of me feels like for me to get it wrong, for me to allow it to come through a damaged filter or through anything other than love becomes a dangerous thing, because everything I bring forward is in the vein of intensity. So I've become very careful about unleashing that, because I unleashed that on my family and it was very bad for me. It backfired horribly. So now I'm just a little bit more careful doing it. But I think that as long as I can keep my heart cracked open and make sure that everything is filtered through that space first.
You know what I was going to say is, it's funny because you are very, just like your dad, you let things build up, whether it's good or bad. You let these things build up and then they come out in bursts. So when you're joyous, it's the most joyous thing you've ever seen. When you're intense or pissed, it's like the most pissed thing I've ever seen in my life. Whereas, you know me, it's like I could be pissed off daily, but it's not a catastrophic thing. It's, 10 minutes of me, and then I'm let it out and it's fine.
Right.
But you let the gas tank get nice and full before you light the match.
Yeah, well, Scorpio be Scorpio.
Be scorpioning. We're almost at the end, but
It has not been 50 minutes.
it has been 45 minutes already.
That is crazy.
Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
I think that the next step for me, now that I mean, the word amplifier was such a big thing for me and unlocked so many things and allowed me to revisit so many memories. And the next thing is how do I use it going forward? How can I be of better service to myself so that I can be of better service to other people? And then revisiting my relationships, because there has been a lot of catastrophic relationships. Maybe not always my fault, but in that moment, what was I amplifying that blew it up? And it kind of separates me from them. There's no blame anymore because I'm taking ownership. There's so much more ownership that comes when you know what you've done. And if I've amplified in the wrong way, I take ownership for that.
I think, well, that's one of the big things with like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's you're not looking for forgiveness, but you are owning up to your mistakes, and it's up to the other person whether or not they want to forgive you, and it's none of your business. It's when you're taking ownership of your stuff, it doesn't matter. The other stuff doesn't matter. As long as you're owning up to your mistakes, you're 99% of the way there.
Yeah, I mean, me deciding to hide my personal power, that's on me. I made that decision to hide my personal power. Nobody forced me to do it. I assessed my situation and thought this is the best thing for me, and I made that decision. And I'm grateful that I feel like I've made some kind of a connection at this point in my life.
And to tie it all back in, I'm gonna do a better job of meditating, writing out my personal powers, the things that come to me, journaling, and then I'll say it in my head, and I will say it out loud too, and I will do a much better job of owning it. And I know that there's a huge difference between the understanding and then the knowing and then the doing. And I feel like we have the understanding, we're working on the knowing, and then we'll get to the doing. And just like everybody else. Otherwise, if you don't do that physical thing, you'll just revert back to what you were. You won't actually incorporate that into the new version of you. So I think that's worth saying.
I agree.
Cool. So when you're a soulmate, you see the other person's soul.
I bet you there's a lot of people out there who ask themselves, how did he fall in love with me? How did he choose me? And that is the answer. That makes all the sense in the world.
I always ask that. I still ask it.
Well, now you don't have to anymore.
And I had the answer from the mouths of babes.
See how you just brought that down in it came out very simplistic, but you must have been tuned in, right? Otherwise it wouldn't have been able to come out that way.
It's because of you. I love you.
Stop giving your power away.
I'm giving you credit. I'm not giving power away. You inspire me. You are my muse, milady.
I'm sorry about the Piccolo sob story.
Don't be sorry. These are my favorite episodes so far. And if we do 1,000 of them, this will still probably be one of my favorites of all time.
I think it was actually the most helpful for you and me. So hopefully that means it was helpful for at least someone.
Yeah, I hope that. Yeah. I mean, I can't make you do things, but I just appreciate people actually listening to us go on and maybe start to incorporate some of these things, because it is about us getting ourselves better, entertaining, and hopefully accidentally on purpose dropping some wisdom nuggets on people, because I feel like we're still so in the prime of our lives that I know that the things that we can come up with, I mean, how many times have we sat around the fire and we solved all the world's problems? And that's kind of what we should be doing here too.
Agreed.
Recording it, and I'm not embarrassed of. It's funny, a lot of people say that they're embarrassed too.
Too embarrassed to get in front of the camera and share. And
yeah, I'm like, wow.
I'm not embarrassed either.
Try watching the Kardashians. That's an embarrassment. Anyway, Not to poop on
You
them.
know, every time you mention somebody famous in our podcast, YouTube like mentions that you've mentioned them.
Oh,
Did you see
really?
that on YouTube?
I did
There
not.
was one where you mentioned Barb Barker and Vanna White. That showed up on the bottom.
Really?
Yep.
AI is getting smarter.
I guess the Kardashians and Vanna White will be showing up in this episode.
Oh my goodness. Well, you mentioned the Firmamental podcast, so hopefully we'll show up on there.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way.
No, just famous people. Yeah. So with that, I would strongly urge everybody to leave a comment and just let us know what you thought and like and share, and let's keep making some amazing stuff. I thought this is very divinely inspired, and I'm hoping that I know not every episode can be like that,
No.
but it was good. We actually took a few extra days to not record, and here's some gold. We alchemized it. So anyway, you bunch of geniuses. I hope that you have a great day, and we are going to see you next time.